No one really knows what happened to Abigail Williams and Libby German after they were abducted off of their hiking trail in a bridge known as the Monon High Bridge. But there are some crazy theories, and they're right in the pleadings of the Delphi murders case. Onans? Onan gods? Norse gods? Really? What is this all about?
In this episode, we're going to be discussing the crazy story about what's now coming up in the court case. This talk about Odinism. Andrew, what can you tell us about that?
I can't really tell you anything, but what we're going to do in this episode is kind of what they call a deep dive into a 136-page memorandum that the defense attorneys for Richard Allen filed in the case in Delphi in the murders of Abby and Libby, in their murders way back in February of 2017. Let me just ask you, did you ever hear of this before?
Not before this case. Never before in my life before this case. And even now, I know very, 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 very little. I know now at this point a Google search, as opposed to last video. Sorry, last video. I learned a little bit more.
Okay, so this is the memorandum that had been filed in support of their motion for a Franks hearing, just so you can see that this is a valid court document that was filed in the Carroll County, Indiana Circuit Court. And so now we're going to go to the introduction, which is on page 4. 8 things to know about this case. 1, members of a pagan Norse religion called Odinism, hijacked by white nationalists, ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Very early on, those in charge of the Delphi murder investigation claim that they consulted with a Purdue professor concerning what resembled possible Odinism signatures left behind at the crime scene. After the Purdue professor proclaimed, according to a state trooper, that it was not Odinism or any other type of cult worshiping or any type of group that would have conducted the crime, the Odinism angle was essentially abandoned. So, Lainey, the allegation is that this came up early in the case. It was looked into, but then it was rejected. Does that make any sense?
It's weird that it would be brought up in the first place and then get rejected. I think that it's bizarre. I think it's just bizarre. I've never heard of anything like this before.
So now we get into a little bit more specifics. Odinism, Odinites, and runes. Odinism is the pagan religion referenced above, and its followers are called Odinites. Odinists are enamored of Viking Nordic culture. Evidence supports that at the crime scene, these murdering Odinites left behind obvious signatures, symbols in the form of runes. These runes were 1, formed with sticks, and 2, fashioned with tree branches, and 3, painted using the blood of Liberty German. Now, a rune is a kind of it's a symbol. It's a symbol like a letter, but from this Nordic Germanic language that goes back to the 3rd century. And I guess they bring it forward to about the 13th century when this kind of stuff was no longer in the mainstream. But apparently, according to this, it's still a cult out in Indiana. Sticks and tree branches were deliberately, carefully, and proficiently placed on each girl in a certain arrangement, mimicking certain runes. At least one of the branches appeared to have its end cut off cleanly by some type of tool like an electric saw, providing proof of a preconceived plan. Additionally, the blood of Liberty German was used as the paint to mark a tree with a rune that looks familiar to the letter F. So now the contention is that because one of the tree branches was sawed off cleanly, that shows premeditation, deliberation, that there was some kind of advanced thought. and the rune that made up the sticks that was on one of the bodies and the rune that was painted onto the tree, you put those two characters together, and what it allegedly spells out is Hail Odin.
Oh, allegedly, yeah, but that's interesting, and also, like you mentioned, like, the fact that it was caught up cleanly instead of, like, just ripped, like, usually if you're gonna break a branch, you're gonna rip it in that moment, but that does, the it's scary enough that they're writing things in blood, but the fact that they came with these plans specifically.
Now, this document also shows that the defense is claiming that police could have done more. Let's take a look at the prison guards, Odinists in the Westville Correctional Facility guarding Richard Allen. The evidence shows that during his pretrial incarceration at Westville Correctional Facility, Richard Allen has been monitored, intimidated, and mentally abused by correctional officers who are also members of this Odinite clan. And and we're redacting their names. The allegation is that these fellows, Westville Corrections officers, boldly wore patches on their Department of Correction uniforms that proclaimed, "In Odin we trust," along with another patch displaying symbols of Odinism, interlocking triangles. Both Odinite correctional officers also display images of runes and or other Odinite symbols on their Facebook page. As recently as June 25 of 2023, for example, Odinite Sergeant so-and-so openly displayed a photograph of his Odinite altar on his Facebook page. A similar altar can be found out on this other officer's Facebook page. So, Lainey, those
Oh
would be
my
things that
god.
I would believe would be independently verifiable.
That is insane to me, that whole thing. Because
Oh,
the thing is, like, I haven't looked into this. I don't know, this is the first time that I've been hearing about Odinism. But when you look up Odinism, the one of the first things that Google says is that it's like has is racist, is like a racist group. So the fact that security guards are so brazenly having patches like this and putting up like effigies and monuments and things like that. It's crazy to me. That is insane. I don't even have words for that.
well, here are some words. Beginning at least on April 3rd of 2023, the guards wore their Odin patches when the defense team visited Richard Allen. However, two sergeants' brazen display of their Odinite patches came to an end on August 17th, 2023. What changed? Well, why suddenly did they no longer display their Odinite patches beginning on the August 17th, 2023 visit between Richard Allen and his defense team? Here is your possible answer. It was not until an August 10th, 2023 deposition of Trooper so-and-so that Richard Allen's defense team finally revealed to the prosecutor and to Unified Command that for many months Richard Allen's defense team, had been fully aware of the strong evidence linking Odinism to the murders. It was also at the August 10th, 2023 deposition that the Unified Command learned that Richard Allen's defense team was not only aware of this information, but also intended to expose the linkage of Abby's and Libby's murders to Odinism and would also be revealing the names of the Odinists at trial. At a deposition, the person who was being deposed and the prosecutor also learned that the defense team obviously intended on exposing the Unified Command's utter failure in pursuing the Odinist suspects in spite of the powerful evidence of Odinites involved in the murders. So this, in a way, explains all this crazy stuff going on in the prison. Explains the defense would argue, why he quote unquote confessed. I mean, if you have all these guards going around, pressuring him and wearing their patches and all that kind of stuff, maybe that pressured him into his declining mental condition and then the subsequent confession.
Mhm.
Lainey, would you buy any of that?
It's crazy to me to think that this is something that could be going on between, like, multiple security guards, and then at the same time, you're putting that with, like, the fact that his interview that he had back in 2017 when the murders happened, there's no records of that, makes it also really scary, and just, like, the fact that this could potentially be, deep-seated corruption throughout the department of we don't even know how many people, really makes things scary. It's interesting to think that if this was such a huge thing, if there were a lot of people involved, it's curious to me that we haven't seemingly there hasn't been information about any other murders that might be connected in this type of way, but we don't know that, but it's a horrifying thing to think about. Like, is it something that I could think happening in my town? No, but at the same time, things like these do happen even though they seem incomprehensible, so it's not a completely insane claim to make, potentially.
That raises an issue with me, and that is that I wonder if anyone had ever known in that area of Indiana that this cult existed, or if it's totally made up of whole cloth. The one thing that has been verified apparently is that they went into the prison, and a couple of the prison guards actually did have these patches on their uniforms. So that's something that was independently verified. They were immediately made to strip those off. That is totally wrong. That's it's just totally wrong. Ab initio, just the very idea. But B, I mean, if we want to be more articulate and intellectual about it, it's a violation of the separation of church and state, because to the extent that this is a religion, and I think, an argument could be made that it's really not a religion, but to the extent that it is a religion, it violates the separation between church and state, because the prison guards obviously are performing a state function in quote unquote purportedly keeping order in the state prison. So
No, those people should not be allowed to work in a prison system.
no, of course not. So now the other point that's in this memo that goes on for 136 pages, and folks, we're not going to bore you with all of it. The contention here by the defense is that, Richard Allen is accused of these awful murders, and as awful as they are, the defense is saying there's no way Richard Allen, who was only 5 feet 4 inches, could have done all the things that were required to get these two girls down off the bridge into the woods about a half mile away and across a very cold creek. So what they're saying is, look at all the different things, and there's 92 of them. We're only going to highlight a couple of them. Look at all the things that one man would have had to have done, and he couldn't have. This one man would have had to have been solely responsible for marching both Abby and Libby down a steep hill. This one man then would have had to have marched both girls through the woods for some distance. At some point in time, this single solitary man would have had to cross a cold river whose depth was nearly 3.5 feet. At this depth, if the water were only 2 feet higher, Richard's whole body would have been completely immersed from toe to toe. And this goes on and on and on, and tells the court allegedly what 92 things would have had. I mean, look at them all. Just this one page is 34 to 44, 10 different things that one man would have had to. And we're not going to go through them because some of them are really very gruesome. But number 68. Now, because at least one of the branches appeared to have, these are the branches that were allegedly put over the top of the girls' bodies. Now, because at least one of the branches appeared to have a clean-cut end, this man acting alone either A, brought out his saw, a saw that he had either stashed at the murder scene ahead of time or had carried on his person as he walked on the bridge, and then used that saw to cleanly cut the end of at least one of the branches. So again, like I said before, premeditation and deliberation is shown here. So there you have 92 different ways that the defense attorneys in this memorandum are saying that there's no way that one person, Richard Allen, a relatively short guy, 5 feet 4, could have done.
And yeah,
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, with the video, the person that's in the recording from the girl's phone does not look like a short person. It's, obviously hard to tell because it's a recording, but I can't imagine that there's no way forensically that they could use like the size of the bridge because there's different planks. Like, how can you not measure like the size of the planks and then put that in comparison to the height of the person, because the person in the video does not look like they're 5'4" at all, in my opinion. I can't, the video is very blurry, but that's like you said, it's a lot. If it's a lot for one person who's shorter than me, and I can't even do anything like to be able to achieve all of that under the pretense that as someone who's, I'm not a guy, so I'm not as muscular, but as someone who's 5'5", I can't imagine being any smaller than I am right now, grabbing 2 people and getting all of that done in 24 hours is kind of a crazy task. I mean, 24 hours is a long time, but
And in fact, it was less than 24 hours. Let's take a look at number 92. They were abducted at 2:13, and then by 3:57, he was actually seen, well, we'll say a person was actually seen walking down this road at that time, 3:57 p.m. And they say that he looked disheveled, he looked tired, he looked like he had mud and blood on him. So, there's an inference that that was him. So it would have all had to have taken place between 2:13 and 3:57, which I agree with you. That is a really odd and bizarre and a compressed kind of a time frame that's in here. Okay, there's a lot in that paperwork. One of the things, and we can't go through it all. One of the things that's in there is that they actually named names, which we're going to protect, because these people, none of these people whose names are in this document have been charged with any crime. There's been an investigation. It's been 6 years. But one of the things that's in there is that they did name names of people who purportedly were there. Some of them were said to have posted things on social media that would, if investigated, would corroborate the allegations that they were involved. And notably, one of the persons who is alleged, according to this document, to have participated in the actual crime apparently is said to have confessed to his sister. I don't know. When I first saw all of this and read all of this, I was scratching my head, just, wondering what all of this is. I've never heard of this before, and I've read a lot of true crime. I consider myself a fairly well-read person. So before we head out, Lainey, what are your thoughts now that we've actually gone through this document? What do you think of all this?
You know, it's a lot. It's definitely crazy. I mean, I definitely can't imagine being in a small town and there being a cult, but at the same time, if a cult's gonna happen, I mean, I don't know, maybe hide it better in a city. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy to think of. Do I think it's true or not? I have no idea at the end of the day, but I also think it is crazy to have one person carry out 2 bodies, not to say that it hasn't been done, but a lot of people can barely, regardless, take on one person, let alone 2 people. It's kinda crazy. But I don't know, the whole situation's crazy. It's very sad, obviously. It's horrible to think about, and it's horrible to think that if it is something among different people, that takes a lot of crazy to get people all together to start acting on something like that. So what's worse to believe that it's this one person and they got him and now it's going to be gone, or oh my god, is this the whole system that's in place? Like, how do you even begin to fight that and find out who's involved? The fact that these officers had the badges at all, and like my little research, showed to me, my little research, Andrew researches, he's the research guy. But like the fact that one of the quick searches you can find talks about this being like a racist group that's, based in all of this weird stuff. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. You don't want to believe these people exist, but at the same time, they're posting it to their Facebook and wearing these badges publicly. So
But I'll be really honest with you. I just don't know what to make of it. On the one hand, I have an open mind. On the other hand, I don't know. You mentioned, is this the kind of place where cults exist. Well, the town of Delphi itself is a population of only 3,000 people. That's tiny, teeny, tiny. That's a small town. 3,000 people in towns like that. Generally, people, they always say the thing that people say is everybody knows each other. Do they? Maybe a little place like this is just exactly the kind of place where cults thrive. I don't know. I'm not a cult expert. The second thing that I think about is that, the perfect crime is committed only by one person. And the reason a perfect crime is committed by only one person is because there's no witness. There's no one that can rat you out. There's no one that can blackmail you. If the one person commits a crime, he holds the key to whether or not it's going to be resolved. Here, we're talking about a bunch of people, 8 different people that are named in the paperwork that would have taken part in all this. We went over 92 different reasons why one person couldn't have done it. So sure, I'll buy into that. How could one person do all of these things? Drag the girls a half a mile, drag them across a river, do all the awful things that they did, paint a rune onto a tree, cover them with sticks and get it all done in a couple of hours. So how, on the one hand, I'm saying, sure, one person couldn't do all of that. But on the other hand, all of those people were involved in this and none of them talked. That is really a difficult thing.
Bizarre. I mean, when you think about it, it's like it's town of 3,000 people. We have videos that have more than 3,000 views. Thank you so much to everybody who's been tuning in and watching. We know you're individual, unique people with lots to say, so we appreciate that. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, have a good one. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we hope to have more exciting episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share. Have a great day. Be well. You have been watching About the Law, a production of the law offices of Andrew D. Myers in Methuen in the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts and in Derry, just outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. Remember to click the like and subscribe buttons down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with your friends and others. If you'd like to talk to me about an injury case, a car accident, a slip and fall, a serious bodily injury case, or some other case, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you. You can contact us through my website at attorney-myers.com. We have a contact us block, or you can call on one of the telephone numbers we've given there, or you can email me at andrew@attorney-myers.com. The foregoing is offered for informational purposes only. It is not intended as and does not constitute legal advice. Laws vary widely from state to state. You should rely only on the advice given to you during a personal consultation by a local attorney thoroughly familiar with state laws and the area of practice in which your concern lies. This podcast must be and hereby is labeled advertisement in some jurisdictions.